All right. Well, welcome everybody to the second traffic calming meeting for Mulberry Downs Circle. We are meeting here virtually tonight on WebEx. The date is October 28th, 2025, here at 6:30 p.m. So thanks everyone for joining. As I just mentioned, my name is David Greaves. I'm going to be facilitating this meeting as well as finalizing the design and everything after tonight. A quick look at the agenda. So as I mentioned, this is the second meeting. We're going to start with a brief overview of the program to answer kind of those questions for anyone who wasn't able to join us a few months ago. But then we're going to kind of recap some of the feedback that we got in our last meeting, because it did have some pretty substantial influence on the direction we took with the project's design. We're going to then take a pretty granular look at the plans that we've developed. So we presented a concept at the first meeting, got your opinions and thoughts, and then did quite a bit of revision based on that. So we just want to show you, what we came up with basically. It's certainly not too late to offer more feedback. I know that we've got some people who weren't able to join us. But just know that the design we're going to look at was, kind of developed in collaboration with your neighbors. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how the project moves forward, particularly some of the finer points about how the balloting works, and then ultimately a bit about sort of timeline and how we might expect the project to go into construction. For anyone who isn't here tonight but might be watching the recording afterwards, the QR code on the screen is to a live survey. So this will be open for a couple more weeks after tonight, but then we'll close it out and kind of finish that data collection period. So all that is to say, if you would like to offer feedback based on what you see tonight, that survey is live and able to be input. We'll get those comments as well and be able to act on them. Okay, so into the brief program overview. The traffic calming program is one that focuses on residential streets, so neighborhoods where people are living. Almost all of our projects include physical elements to encourage lower speeds over significant lengths. So we're not just like lowering the speed limit and calling it a day. We're not only educating, we often will do a design that changes the street in order to slow speeds in those residential areas. And as you can tell, one of the primary goals is speed reduction. We'll talk about kind of the main driver of that in just a second. But before we do that, we like to cover the 3 E's of traffic calming. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. We've got engineering bold and underlined here because NDOT, the Nashville Department of Transportation, really has the greatest ability to affect safety on their streets with design. So certainly we do education. This meeting is an example of it. Enforcement is entirely within Metro Nashville Police Department. So NDOT does not do speed enforcement. Nothing we talk about here tonight is going to involve tickets or anything in that realm. So when we do a project, we like to come up with something that will kind of encourage slow speeds at all times. And the reason why speeding is one of the things that we try to address with the traffic calming program ties into Vision Zero. So the kind of quickest distillation of that is this infographic that shows pedestrians hit by vehicles going 25 miles an hour have a reasonably good chance of surviving, just about 90%. However, when speeds of vehicles increase, that danger increases quite a bit. So that chance of survival goes down to the kind of 35% once vehicles are going up near 45 miles an hour. So in neighborhoods where we expect people to be, using their front yards, kind of walking around, certainly in neighborhoods without sidewalks, sharing the pavement with cars, we think it's really important to make sure vehicles are driving at a safe speed so that everyone using the road, has that safety benefit. This is a really popular program. So I had a question already about how this project came to be. Basically, all of these traffic calming projects start with applications. So either like an HOA or a neighborhood association, or just a group of residents that all live on the same street can apply to NDOT. And then what we do is collect some data, do a study, and rank all of our applications based on, kind of safety and quality of life criteria. And Mulberry Downs wound up in the top 25 of that when we selected, 25 streets last spring. The map you're seeing here is the live traffic calming tracker. That is at TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And it's useful for seeing kind of all the traffic calming projects in the city, as well as keeping track of like what phase of a project any given street is. They change colors based on sort of what stage in the process they're at. So last meeting, we got a good amount of things sort of brought up that weren't necessarily able to be accomplished with this kind of project. Should we get any more of those? We want to make sure everyone is aware of Hub Nashville as a tool to request, almost anything from Metro Nashville. A lot of the Hub Nashville I do is transportation related, but you can also interface with things like public safety, trash and recycling, even debris in the roadway. So that can be accessed by calling 311. You can also get to it online at hub.nashville.gov. And there's also an app for mobile phones that's convenient to use as well. So we just want to make sure everyone has got that on their radar, and it's a helpful tool to interface with Metro. Project limits. So this is the segment of Mulberry Downs Circle that was applied for. It's the whole thing that is like currently on our GIS map. We do, of course, understand that this neighborhood has been extended up the hill, but the traffic calming specific project ends at Berrywood Way and starts at Dickerson Pike. There is quite a different character of the street as we move along it, so we'll talk about that when we review our design. But
can I interject one quick thing?
Yeah, by all means.
So Mulberry Downs has 120 homes. The new construction has 312 homes. Just want to throw that in there. I'm sure you have that someplace, but just so you know.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to just pause. Does anyone have questions about what I've covered so far? Anything just sort of like process or project related? What we're going to do next is review some of the feedback and provide some updates, but I know not everyone was here for meeting one, so I didn't want to skip over that first phase too quickly if y'all are curious about anything. Okay, well, so jumping into the feedback we got in our last meeting. So we originally presented a concept with 5 sets of speed cushions, all kind of clumped near the residential part of Mulberry Downs Circle, so where all of the intersections are and the homes. A couple people brought up a preference for fewer, specifically like asking if 4 would be okay. And we did not get a lot of feedback indicating that anyone really preferred 5. We also heard from a couple people that they wanted stop control at Berrywood Way and Mulberry Way, so like stop signs along Mulberry Downs to help kind of control the speeding that's happening. One person did ask for traffic circles. That was something that we get sometimes, and we do look into those to make sure, see if we can get that geometry to work. Requested some lane narrowing, basically painting stripes on the edges of the roadway to shrink the space that cars should be driving in. That can help slow traffic down as well. And then in this case, it's also an opportunity that overlaps with the bike lanes, making them a little bit more functional as well. And then lastly, and we can get into the specifics of this in a second, but the way our balloting policy works that we reviewed, it's only pertaining to owners of parcels that touch the street. And I know for some of the people on the call, you use Mulberry Downs all the time, but your individual lot doesn't actually touch that that right of way. So the result of that is that only a handful of people in the neighborhood called Mulberry Downs, the way that policy is written and interpreted, actually will be voting on this project. And then across the way, many of these townhomes, they all own these lots in common. So this whole group of people will be sent the ballots and will be voting on the project. That's just kind of a reality of how this policy works in keeping the voting really consistent from project to project. But we do understand that is kind of a weird result for a project like this, where the Mulberry Downs neighborhood seemed to be the group that was a little more, enthusiastic about the project. Okay, so with that, I've got some updates on each of those feedback points. We did update the design to reduce it from 5 cushions to 4. We were able to do this without going outside of our design standards, so it really is not a big deal. We feel like that design is going to work just fine. Using stop control at intersections for the purpose of traffic calming is explicitly not allowed in engineering design guidance that we use. But we do have some other ideas for how we might slow down vehicles at intersections. So we've heard that feedback and have tried to do what we can to achieve the intended effect, but we are not proposing stop signs at any of the 4 intersections along Mulberry Downs. We did a little bit of experimenting with traffic circle layout, but basically there's no way to do that without making the existing bike lanes kind of either merge with traffic or be much closer than they need to be. So just given that complexity and not wanting to take the existing bike facilities and make them worse, we've decided to try narrowing the intersections from the outside in rather than making a circle in the middle. And then we have come up with a design for buffers, protection, and intersection improvements to kind of address the concerns and suggestions that residents in the last meeting had. But they're going to be on a separate set of plans with a different timeline. We'll talk about kind of why, but basically what we're trying to do is, set this street up for the best possible case. However, a traffic calming project like this one does not have the kind of funding and timeline to do a full repave of the road. We're targeting kind of smaller, quicker measures that will, be improvements, but not a full reconstruction of Mulberry Downs Circle. And then lastly, the ballot policy, we very much understand why neighbors in the Mulberry Downs, neighborhood would be frustrated about how that ballot area is drawn. But, for us, it's really important for this program to be fair, to keep the rules the same for every one of these projects. I think the worry is if we did it in kind of a special way for you all, that would really be complicating many of the other neighborhoods that we deal with. So the ballot policy that we'll be following is this one, where each of these parcels owners will be receiving the ballot.
So they get 112 condos get a ballot, and 6 houses on Mulberry Downs get a ballot. How's that fair? Not that I'm just throwing that out there.
No, and believe me, I do understand that is not kind of the ideal scenario. The fairness that I mentioned is mainly we need to apply this policy the same for all of these neighborhoods.
Okay.
So next on the docket is just kind of going through the plans. But I do want to make sure that if anyone else has questions about what I've covered so far, I can try to add a little more color to the feedback that we got last time if necessary. But I'm also happy to just move on. So does anyone have questions?
I have
I have a
questions, but I'm gonna
question.
wait till we're done. I will
Okay.
wait. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you know exactly how many people at this point will get a ballot? And what happens if the occupants of those homes do not um, turn their ballot in? Then who makes that decision?
Yeah, those are two good questions. So on the exact number, I don't know. It sounded like maybe I don't know if it's 100 condos in there, but it is quite a few. Um, let's call it somewhere between
You're
50 and 100. I don't know the exact number. In terms of, I'll skip ahead for a sec just to answer that question. So with the balloting, we go off of the percentage of respondents. So we're not needing like 2/3 of every single parcel to say yes on this. A successful ballot is when 2/3 of those who vote yes. Is that kind of get at what you were wondering?
Yes. And so if the application was submitted, I don't know who exactly submitted the application, but if it was submitted by Mulberry Downs HOA,
Mhm.
why would it be extended to residents in a different subdivision?
Yeah,
Their
that's a good
subdivision
question.
shares the road.
Yeah, it's because they own parcels that touch the affected right of way. Um, does that make sense?
Yes
And
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 no.
we
I
again we
understand that
do
they
realize
were
that.
built on there, but they're not specifically a part of Mulberry Downs. They have a total different subdivision.
Yeah. And again, we heard about that last time and fully do like get that kind of contradiction there. It's just when we have the policy on how this program needs to run, and we are, um, administering like a voting process that decides what kind of infrastructure is built. Um, it's important that we apply that consistently, project to project.
I get that. We just don't agree with it.
Yeah, understood. You'll want to take a look at the designs?
I do, because I have questions and other things, but I want to see everything first before I ask them, because you might answer them or you might not, or I might have more.
Got it. Well, I will back all the way up here to the measures. So just a quick little preview of what you're going to see. We're proposing speed cushions. These are modular rubber devices bolted onto the road. I think many people that have been driving around Nashville the last few years have encountered these. We do these so often because they have like a measured impact on the speeding that's really consistent. So when we studied 6 projects, we saw the average speed come down from 31 to 22 miles an hour, and the 85th percent speed from 37 down to 25. 85th percent speed, for anyone who doesn't know, is the number at which 15% of drivers are going faster than that number, and 85% are going that speed or slower. I think that Mulberry Downs has measured speeds like a little over 40, maybe. So we know that's really high. We still think that if we do some sort of vertical measure, there's a good chance that will come down to a much safer speed around the 25-mile-an-hour mark.
Okay, quick question.
Yes.
When you put those lines out, they weren't in the actual subdivision. They were up on the hill and they were at the front entrance. Two totally different areas, two totally different types of driving.
Mhm.
I expressed this before we even started the meeting as to how I drive, and that's how most
Mhm.
people drive. So that right there is skewed information that you have. So unless you put the lines in the subdivision, meaning between Berrywood and Strawberry Cove and Cranapple, or I'm sorry, Berrywood and Cranapple, and then Strawberry and Mulberry Downs, if you put them there within the scope of our subdivision, not going out, not coming down the hill, that would be a much better representation of what the speeds are. Again, if you want to put one right up here at the top of Berrywood where they're coming down off the freaking hill, by all means put one there, but don't take that information that you have from the front hill and from the entrance and use that, because that's not right.
Yeah, so what we do understand is that along an entire street, doing a count at any like given position might not represent every other part of the street. So we try to be relatively consistent when we place counters, just street to street, make sure things are fair, like not too close to intersections, not in particular places where people might be going slower than they would be on the rest of the street. And the idea there is just to keep our ranking system fair. So y'all were chosen, and I will kind of report back some feedback from the neighbors we got in the first time. The counter may have been in that kind of wooded area, but
Yeah,
people in the
that's
Mulberry Downs neighborhood are experiencing speeding happening in the neighborhood part.
right, but you
So,
didn't put counters there though. That's the thing. That's
well, sure.
different.
Um,
Trust
it
me, I
doesn't
know.
really, sorry.
I said, trust me, I know.
Yeah,
I,
no,
I
and
see
I
it
totally hear you.
consistently. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, essentially, all that count affects is whether or not Mulberry Downs is selected in a given selection. So if it was a much slower speed, maybe y'all would not have been selected, and that would be a disappointment to those who applied. But given what we heard in the last meeting, we have at least some people who are enthusiastic about a traffic calming project happening, and that's the kind of design that we've come up with.
So with these rubber mats that are bolted to the ground, how does that play into when we need a plow truck in the wintertime?
Yeah, so snowplows can lift the plow kind of up and over that cushion.
How are
So
they going to know that they're there though?
we've got signs. We've also got some delineators that we'll stick up. We'll take a look at the details in a second. But having traffic calming does not prevent a road from being plowed. Do you mind if
Don't
I move
agree,
on to
but
the
okay.
rest of the measures? Okay. So we only have speed cushions in the kind of neighborhood portion of the street. The rest, as we've heard, is pretty hilly, pretty curvy. So we have placed a couple of radar feedback signs in those areas to make sure that drivers are at least aware of what the speed limit is, get a suggestion, hey, if they're going too fast, it'll flash at you. But we are not proposing like a full, half mile of speed cushions all the way to Dickerson Pike. So these will be kind of on the eastern side of the project. So we've also got narrowing. This will be at the cushions, as you'll see. So kind of squeezing that available space down from 14-foot wide lanes to 10.5 feet. And that is just a way to kind of make sure that the drivers don't feel too comfortable going at high speeds. And it slows down with kind of a psychological effect. Not in the traffic calming design plans, but in the bikeway improvement plans, we have got bulb outs. These are created with striping and plastic delineators to narrow intersections that are wider than they need to be and kind of better protect people using the intersection on bikes or on foot. They do that by slowing the speeds at which cars can make turns, as well as shortening the crossing distances that others have to cross. Okay, at last, the Mulberry Downs traffic calming plans. As I mentioned before, we've got two plan sets here tonight. So this first one is the traffic calming project with the speed cushions and the radar feedback signs. In a few slides, we'll talk about the bikeway improvements project. That'll work a little bit differently in terms of next steps. And it's also not likely to be done until the road is ready to be repaved, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to do the kind of work that that is going to entail before new asphalt gets put down. So with that caveat, I'll just kind of explain how we got to the design we're looking at here. Like I mentioned before, we went from 5 speed cushion sets proposed to 4. The 5th one was kind of in the middle here. We did readjust the spacing a little bit so we don't leave any gaps that are too large. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when it does get into that hilly area, we've just got those radar feedback signs. We realize that having, a long array of cushions through the woods is maybe not the best use of everyone's time on a road like this. Taking a look into the details, we've got 1 set of speed cushion per block in this first section. We make sure that they're at the bottom of the hill, like on the curve, just to make sure that visibility isn't a problem. And we've got signs at each one of these.
That's going to be a problem in itself. The reason for that is a bus turnaround for the bus stop for Metro. For 2 or 3 routes. Just saying.
So where
at that
does
intersection,
the bus go?
It comes up to that intersection and turns around right there at Mulberry Downs and Berrywood, right at the top of the hill, right at the bottom of the curve. So if you put speed bumps, I would put them up on the curve. I wouldn't put them right there where the bus turns around.
So this is kind of on the straight part. I don't imagine buses are going to have a huge issue, and it is worth mentioning that the scale of these is symbolic only. They're only about 6 feet wide by 10.5 feet. So they look quite a bit bigger on these plans than they'll be in real life. There should be plenty of space for a bus to drive forward, do whatever turning they need to do, and then come back without being impeded.
I still think that they need to be up on a curve, but that's who's speeding, not us in our neighborhood. Well, some of us are, but not to the degree of what you're talking about, because we stop at the stop signs and we don't get up to speed till we get out of the neighborhood. It's those that are coming down around that curve that are doing it. That's where it needs to be. It doesn't need to be in our neighborhood. It needs to be on the curve.
Okay, I understand. We cannot put speed cushions on areas that are too tight of curves or hills that are too steep. This particular spot is both of those, and we're putting a cushion up on the curve. But I appreciate the feedback.
Well, then put it up above before the curve. Then
I see.
Put it up
so
by the first
you,
of the house and the first road where the townhouses are. Put it there.
Understood. The project that was applied for by your neighbors was from Berrywood Way to Dickerson Pike. So that this is the street that we are addressing with the project.
Okay, so then I have a question.
Yes.
You're able to include residents all further up the street, but you're not able to move the speed cushions past Berrywood Way? Why is that?
Right. That's a good question.
Yeah, so the reason that this group of townhomes are included in the ballot is because they all own the parcel in common that touches the project. So when the project was applied for, specifically it was asked that Berrywood Way to Dickerson Pike be calmed. I'm sure that your neighbors had the traffic coming from this neighborhood in mind. But I want to reiterate that we did this design in response to that and based on the feedback from those who came to the first meeting.
Okay, so because it's not in the initial application, there's no way you can pass Berrywood Way.
That's correct. With the traffic calming project, we'll move on to the bikeway plans in a sec, but just wanted to, kind of clear up like how this project came to be. The next two sets of cushions are very similar, just past Mulberry Way. We did hear in the first meeting, residents noted that there is a development planned north of Mulberry Downs Circle. So what we did is made sure to, pull those designs, find out where their driveway was going to be, and coordinate around that. So we don't have these cushions like blocking that or too close or anything. And then after that is where we get to the radar feedback signs in the more kind of hilly areas of the street. Last sheet of the plans is just a detail of what a given set of cushions is going to look like. So on wide roads like Mulberry Downs, we have some options, but we do get constrained by a few things. So we have bike lanes present. What we don't want to do is anything that's going to impede the users of those. And then we've heard that we have buses that use this street. So we try to keep cushions like in the center of the lane in those circumstances. And that's led us to choose 2 cushions across, but then make up some of that space by adding that kind of narrowing at the cushions I mentioned. And that'll be enforced with some plastic delineators. What we don't want anyone to do is to like kind of drive around these into the bike lane. So these are intended to prevent that.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, so that is the traffic calming plans that will be voted on by that group shown in yellow. Do you have any questions about that or sort of anything else pertaining to this design?
Other than I don't like it, no.
Understood. Is there
Even if we're
is
not,
traffic calming
even if
that
we're
you
not
would,
voting, are we allowed to
sorry.
see what that ballot looks like?
Yeah, we'll have an example in just a couple of slides.
Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we had a good amount of requests from attendees of the first meeting that we weren't able to address with the tools at the traffic calming program's disposal. But we were able to come up with a design that met some of those with what's, like a bikeway improvement project. So as you all know, you have bike lanes on Mulberry Downs already. But the pavement is pretty old. The striping is not as visible as we'd like it to be. And with the speeds that we measured, it's kind of a mismatch between the facility type and the speeds and volumes that y'all experience on the roadway. So the big caveat here is that this is not the design that the traffic calming project group is voting on, and it does not have as particular of a timeline. So we still want your feedback. We'd love input, any ideas or thoughts you all have. But this is further in the future, less kind of certain. So just wanted to make sure that was really clear and there wasn't, too much confusion about like which design was gonna happen which way. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So jumping straight in, these will look like a lot of other painted and delineated bike lanes around Nashville. Basically what we're doing is taking the existing stripe and leaving it where it is. That's like 6 feet off of the curb, but then adding a second stripe toward the center of the road, 2 feet in to create a buffer. That allows space for white delineation. And those are a tool that prevent people from driving or parking or just otherwise using, the bike lanes for uses they shouldn't be. We did hear that a lot of people in the Mulberry Downs neighborhood kind of use this street as like a walking loop. So we're optimistic that by kind of adding this protection, if anyone is walking in the bike lane, they'll experience more comfort as well, and hopefully just provide a better experience overall in the neighborhood. In addition to those buffers, I mentioned earlier that we couldn't make circles work very well, but we do want to do something to slow down vehicles near intersections. So what we're proposing is called centerline hardening. We'll take a look at what that looks like in detail in a second, but the idea is just that you don't have as much space to make turning maneuvers at high speeds, and it's necessary to slow down to a safer speed before crossing into the bike lane or across the walking paths and things. The rest of these look pretty similar. As we've covered, it is a pretty long road. But then ultimately it terminates down here at the bus stop on Dickerson Pike, where the current bike lanes start and stop today. Lastly, we've got some details up in the top left. That's kind of the typical section I mentioned earlier. Down in the bottom right, that's kind of a close-up of that proposed centerline hardening and how those delineators will be spaced out. And then some more about the striping and exactly, which symbol goes where, that kind of thing. Any questions, thoughts, ideas about the bikeway plans?
I do. Does anybody else before I get started? Okay. So years ago, Don and I talked extensively about the bike lanes that are now there now. Before it was just a plain road, no striping whatsoever. We put the bike lanes in and a center lane, again, to one, slow down some of the neighborhoods in us, but also create a space for people to walk because we do use it quite a bit for walking. Now, having said that, that has increased because of, again, the neighborhood behind us, and they have sidewalks and we do not. So they therefore do their loop and then they come through our neighborhood as well. And one of the things that I was going to work on, irregardless of whether I had been voted back onto the board or not, was to get those redone so that we would have a center lane coming down. But again, we have to wait for the final paving, which they are taking quotes because I saw a guy out there walking the other night to get that new neighborhood finished and paved with the final top coat. Having said that, I was hoping I could get with Don to get Mulberry Down Circle repaved at that same time, as well as Berrywood Way and maybe Strawberry Cove, because Strawberry Cove did not get it the first time around we did this 10 years ago. So with all that being said, yes, we do like the bike lanes that we have. I don't know that we want any berms or any plastic delineators or anything like that. I do want the center lane to go all the way up and around the curve. I do want side lanes all the way up and around the curve so that when they're coming down, they don't come into our side because they're coming down that hill too fast from up the neighbor's hill. Second thing is we do not want bike lanes between the houses. So if you're coming into our subdivision, once the playground starts and comes up to Berrywood on that right-hand side, we do not want bike lanes there. Reason for that is the people in Strawberry Cove and Cranapple Cove do not have any extra, well, mostly Strawberry Cove, do not have any extra space for extra parking. So if they were to have a graduation party or something of that nature, they have no place to park. And if they try to park on Mulberry Down Circle, they could get a ticket because we've had a couple that had the cops stop and say, hey, you can't do that. And they're like, well, where am I supposed to park? So I have been asked by several neighbors since being put back on the board to make sure that doesn't happen on that side of the road. Now you can have the white line for the side of the lane, but no bike lane between Berrywood and the playground on that side. You can have it on the other side of the road all day long. And then all the way out to the end and up and around the corner.
Okay, yeah, understood. I definitely appreciate the desire for kind of that ability to park on the street, and understand that not everyone's driveways have the ability to like accommodate all of the possible traffic. Um, this will definitely need to be kind of a back and forth between like design and the neighborhood wishes. We certainly can't design something that we think is going to be unsafe, but we do appreciate that y'all have ideas for what you want the street to look like as well. Um, we also need to balance this with some of the feedback we've heard already. At least one person in your neighborhood did express that they wanted protection along here with the bike lane. So while I understand that you're on the HOA's board, not everyone quite feels the
Oh, I
same
understand
way.
that's entirely my opinion.
Mhm.
And that was actually the majority of the opinion when we did this to begin with the first time around, because I went to all of the neighbors and talked about it extensively, sent out flyers, this, that, talked with Don extensively. We went back and forth. I couldn't tell you, I mean, months before anything was ever done. So, yes.
Understood. Great. Well, yeah, certainly appreciate that. We've got that, considered. Anyone else?
I do have a question. Excuse me. Those white poles, you called them bulb outs. Tell me again what that's designed to do.
Yeah, so bulb outs are intended to increase the um, safety of an intersection by slowing vehicles. So the top left image here is kind of the like extreme example of these in action. Almost all intersections are smaller than this one. But if you can imagine, if you have a lot of space to make a wider turn, that can happen a lot faster than having less space to make a sharper turn. So when we have those sharper turns, drivers have more time to see if they're like conflicting with anyone. Um, and in addition, pedestrians who are crossing that street don't have to travel quite as far to cross the area where cars are going to be. So they sort of have that double benefit by tightening up the intersection's geometry.
Okay, so if she just mentioned the neighbor, the streets that don't have the extra parking, if you put those there, that literally means they couldn't park right there.
Yeah, so the way that these work when it pertains to parking is basically enforcing an existing metro code that nobody is supposed to park within 35 feet of a crosswalk. That's a measure that's intended for safety. So keeping people who are crossing the street visible to cars who are driving is really important, because that's how accidents happen, is when maybe someone's crossing and they don't have the ability to see oncoming traffic, or the oncoming traffic doesn't have the ability to see them. So these rarely, if ever, actually remove parking that's supposed to be happening, but they keep the intersection clear so that visibility can be maintained.
So
But that
was that
does. Go ahead, sorry.
was that added? Because I don't remember that being mentioned in the first meeting. So where did that come from?
Yeah, so the bulb outs are not included in the traffic calming plans. We show them on the bikeway plans because they're often kind of an inherent effect. When we stripe bike lanes, we tend to do so with geometry that keeps those crossings short. So these aren't extending like too far back into these streets, but they're just keeping those intersections safe for anyone that's crossing, using the bike lane, either as for biking or for walking. Just kind of making sure that that geometry is all a little tighter and slower for everyone's benefit.
So the only places those are going to be are on Mulberry Down Circle on the first row, or Mulberry Way at that intersection, on Mulberry Way, Cranapple Cove on Cranapple Cove, Strawberry Cove on Strawberry Cove, and on Berrywood Way at Berrywood intersection. Those are the only places that those will be. So that
That's
only
correct.
affects Mulberry
all
Downs. So that doesn't affect anybody else.
Well, it affects anyone who would be using the street. If
Right.
that
Oh
makes
no.
sense.
Well, yeah, that. But as far as the rest of it goes, it's just
Mhm.
going to inhibit. So for those homeowners that live on those particular streets right there, especially Cranapple and Strawberry Cove, because
Yes,
they're
and
dead,
some of
because
the
they're dead end
residents,
streets. Yeah.
yeah, and some of the residents may use that area for parking. My
Right.
concern is that if you have a bunch of people that doesn't affect voting to put that right there.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the
and
option
that's
to
where I'll
not
bring us
include
back to
that. Does
the
that have to
caveat
come with
is
the
that
bike lane?
this design is not in the short term. This isn't the traffic calming project that people are voting on. This is the concept that we wanted to come to this meeting prepared with because we got a lot of feedback in the first meeting that we hope can be addressed with a design and a project like this. But it's not the one that, we're really here to talk about. This is just kind of for the future, what we're thinking we might be able to do with a bikeway improvement and repaving project. Does that make sense? I know that this is confusing with the
Yeah.
two different kind of plan sets, but yeah, what we're seeing here is the more conceptual, longer term, not being voted on immediately kind of design.
So would that voting for the bike lanes and stuff, would that be open to everybody or just only the people that the property again affects, which again means that we only have 6 homes against 112?
So the traffic calming program is the only infrastructure program in Nashville where residents directly vote on whether or not they want it to happen. So the policy specifically is like, do you want vertical elements like speed cushions to happen? And we do not want to put those in if we don't have support from the neighborhood. Street design, when it comes to projects that are more like intended to connect things and increase mobility, we don't only take input from adjacent properties. Basically, when projects like these are used by more people, we do want to hear from a wider group. So that would be everyone in Mulberry Downs, the people in the adjacent neighborhood. We want a lot of feedback from folks and hear everyone's ideas and thoughts before moving forward with anything like this.
So when does the voting take place?
That's a great question. We can come back to these plans, but for now, I'll move on to kind of just the timeline, the next steps in the project, and cover that part of the presentation. So as I mentioned before, this all started with an application from your neighborhood. We then did that prioritization and selection process, measured some speeds, volumes, looked at crash history, location relative to parks, schools, as well as the presence or lack of sidewalks. We had a first neighborhood meeting earlier in the summer. I think it was around mid-July. We then did a site visit, refined our concept design based on the feedback we collected in that first meeting. And we're here at the red circle. So the second neighborhood meeting, which was requested by attendees of the first meeting, where we're collecting, of course, additional feedback, make sure that everyone understands what will be voted on and why, how it works. The next step is the online ballot. So what we need to do is post the plans online, generate the up-to-date list of all of those property owners we mentioned earlier, and then there will be a 6-week window for voting, yes or no on the project. So that'll work by sending out mailers to the address listed in Metro's property records. So if you own one house, but you lived at another one, we would send it to the one that's listed on that, parcel's deed as like the owner contact information.
I
Um,
got that.
yeah, the mailer looks like the graphic in the top left. So you'll see it has the date when the voting closes to make sure everyone's aware, like when the cutoff is. And it's also got a unique ID. So that's a code that you will get that's unique to you. You'll submit it in the online form. And that helps us just make sure that all of the votes we're getting, make sense. And, if anyone like accidentally voted twice or something, it'd be obvious what happened. You can vote yes or no once we get to the ballot phase. And as I mentioned before, 2/3 or 66% of respondents need to vote yes for the project to move forward. Importantly, if a project does not move forward, we don't just walk away and do nothing. Like we've already observed that there is speeding and volume, and we've gotten lots of feedback from residents they would like something to be done. So in the event that that happens, we'll come up with kind of a plan B design. It will for sure not include speed cushions. It will likely still include the radar feedback signs, and it may include some striping. We haven't gotten there yet. Hopefully, your neighborhood gets the project that it wants. But we do want to make sure everyone's aware that should the ballot be a no, we're not just gonna like ignore the task at hand. We'll still do something. It just might not be the speed cushion based design we reviewed.
Now I'm speaking, I know for some people, and not for everybody. I know that because I know that there are several that clearly have a 180 degree from what I do. I truly do not want the speed cushions at all. I don't. However, I am not opposed to the striping, so long as it's just striping, and I'm not opposed to the radar either. I definitely think that some of this would be, once they have that final coat on and that corner is striped for sure, that would definitely take care of some of this. Not all of it, but some of it. And I think that most people probably would be okay with that. Now, some clearly would not because they're want those speed cushions, and they're entitled to their opinion just like I am with mine. So I understand all of that. However, just having a gut feeling that our 6 votes to the 112 votes that they have, I don't think it's going to pass. I could be wrong, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I've done a lot of these projects before and have been surprised many times. So only one way to find out. We'll see what happens. But the good news is we've got kind of a plan A, but also a solid plan B. So we don't want to leave y'all hanging.
Right. And the plan
just,
B is what I was going to work on.
It sounds like it. Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah.
So yeah, just a couple of points to cover. We're sending these to residential properties only. So on the lots that are like huge and just forest, they will not be included. Owners with multiple properties will just get like one vote. We don't make it proportional to how many lots you own or anything like that. Operating businesses are not eligible. I don't think y'all have any in this neighborhood, but sometimes we get like a corner lot on Dickerson that's got a shop going on. So
are rentals included?
So the owners of the properties being rented are included. The people renting are not included.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's one ballot per parcel.
Okay, so if it's progressive rentals, then they only have one vote. So okay, I gotcha.
Oh, is there? Do you mean like is there an owner that owns like multiple of these condos? Do you think?
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, but I haven't looked at theirs yet. I haven't got that far.
I see.
Get ours organized.
Understood. Okay, and then yeah, of course, if this voting period starts and you believe that you should have gotten a card but did not, you're welcome to reach out to us. We have a list of all of the ballots and codes, and we're more than happy to look you up if you reach out. So that's all of the content I've got, but I've got plenty of time for questions, further discussion. We can revisit any of the slides. Any final thoughts from y'all?
If the person that put the application in no longer lives in our neighborhood?
You know, I think this particular application came from the HOA itself. So I don't know who initiated it, but if they no longer own the parcel of land, then they would not get a ballot. We just send it to all of the property owners at the time.
So to make sure I understand everything correctly, if you do get 66% of the votes that say yes, everything that you're listed is going to occur. The speed cushions, the bulbs, the bike lanes, all of that is going to occur.
Great question. The answer is maybe. So the voting is on all of the plans before this one. So 4 sets of cushions, 2 radar signs. That's about all we're able to do in the short term. So that's the traffic calming project. And then
Okay,
the
so they're just
striping.
voting yes or no on those two.
Yes, exactly. So the
Okay.
bikeway plans, all of the ones with this like yellow highlight in the bottom, these are more, you know, when repaving happens, we'll consider doing something like this. We'll also come back and you know, talk to you guys before that is done. But we wanted to make sure that we showed you all this because the feedback we got in the last meeting is that you know, some of your neighbors wanted to see a design with some of these tools implemented. So we didn't want to just say, "Oh, we'll get to it later." You know, we do want to hear what y'all think and respond to it however we can. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great.
So who maintains the speed bumps? Metro?
Yes, they're owned and maintained by Nashville. Any other questions?
What's the average lifespan of one of those?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think any of them have been in the city so long that they've worn out. I know that the manufacturer has a warranty, so if they were to fail like early, you know, they'd be able to be replaced. But they are intended to be permanent installations, and they are pretty durable. They're made of rubber that it's like bolted onto the road, so they should behave like you know, any asphalt speed bump would.
So my question is given the high rate of traffic that we have, obviously we have quadrupled in size. And then not only that, now we get all of the cut through from Brick Church Pike because people are like, oh, guess what? Now we got a new shortcut we can go through. How does that stack up to other neighborhoods that have this as far as the volume of traffic that they incur?
That's a great question. So when we collected data on the street, Mulberry Downs had around 1,500 vehicles that day. Speed cushions like these are intended for streets with a volume of 5,000 vehicles a day and fewer. So you're not like close to being out of the range that these are an appropriate treatment for, even with the increase in traffic relative to the original state.
Yeah, originally we have it You figure we had probably about 200 cars, and that was it.
Mhm.
Now we're exponentially unfreaking real.
Mhm.
So what can I do to get a stop sign at my corner?
Go on to Hub Nashville. That'd be, sorry, I'm like rapidly coming back to the slide. Hub.Nashville.gov does have a form for you to request stop signs. And when that happens, NDOT engineers will take a look at it, kind of evaluate whether or not it's an appropriate, treatment at that particular place, and go from there basically. Uh, in the link to that website has been placed, so you can follow that if you'd like.
So, but to my understanding, it's only 2 weeks that they vote out of the whole year for that.
No, so traffic and parking commission meetings happen once a month. And that's kind of just a rolling agenda. So should the request be approved, it would then, go up to the Traffic and Parking Commission for them to give that final sign off. But it's not every 6 months, as far as I'm aware.
Last time I asked for it, they said, "Oh, you only have 2 weeks at this time of this year to do so." And obviously, I missed it because it was right then, and they weren't done with
Interesting.
construction yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is actually how the traffic calming application period used to work. It'd be like a 2 week application window, and that would happen every 6 months. That, to the relief of many, has changed. So it's still on a 6 month cycle, but the application is open at any time. So should any other streets in your neighborhood or other neighborhoods want to apply, they could do that now, or like any day in the whole year is available for applying.
Okay. I think if I had one, it would definitely slow down the traffic coming around my corner and coming up the street to your corner. I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit coming out of my driveway because they take in the corner and they don't slow down or stop. Not that I think everybody would stop if there's a stop sign, because they don't now go in the other direction, but it definitely would slow some of them down. Which is why I think
Yeah.
they posed one at the top of the hill. Slow fuckers down, coming down off the hill.
Mhm. Anything else?
Mm. I know I asked this, but I know you answered it. I can't remember. Do you know when the ballots will go out?
Um, it doesn't take us very long to put that list together. I would say within 2 weeks is a good expectation. And we can also shoot y'all an email when that's coming, just so that you can publicize it the same ways.
Oh yeah, because I think I'll probably go around personally to those 6 houses and explain to them what's going on, and let
Yeah,
them
please
obviously make their own
do.
choice,
Mhm.
being that they're the only ones that can vote. I, well, anyways, I get it, but I don't get it at all.
Yeah, we know that not everyone feels similarly about these, and that is why the voting
I
component is part of this program, because we don't want to do a project that people don't want.
No, I get that, but here's the thing: we for 30 years have been secluded as a dead end subdivision up until 5 years ago, when they opened it up.
Mhm.
All of our roads come back to Mulberry Downs Circle, because that is the way the nature of our neighborhood is. So for the rest of us to not be included kind of feels like a slap to us, because it's like, oh, well, you're not on the main road. Well, yeah, hello. It's all built to one side. Of course we're not. That doesn't make, and if it's Mulberry Downs, then it is all of Mulberry Downs, 120 homes of Mulberry Downs, not 6 on a street.
Yeah, again, I totally understand that there's a difference between that like balloting group and the group of people that will use, the road with speed cushions on it. The balloting policy is deliberately really simple so that it can be applied consistently on every street in a way that's as close to fair as we can get it with one,
I get it.
prescriptive. Okay, appreciate it.
Hey y'all, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks. This is Anna Dearman at NDOT. Thank you all so much for your time. I know we need to wrap up and let you get your evening back. I know that the traffic calming program requirements are, maybe not satisfactory to you all. And please understand that it's simply in the interest of applying the exact same standard fairly across the county. And that's challenging when we have such a variety of types of neighborhoods across the county. So I really applaud David and his team for coming up with this design, for trying their very best to respond to the community. I thank you all so much for your time and championing these safety and mobility improvements in your neighborhood. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening and rest of your week.
Hey, thank you so much for bringing this information, and we're definitely going to take some steps and go one direction or the other.
Great. Well, yeah, to second that, thank you all so much for your time this evening. We've got our contact information, so should anything, come up, you're welcome to reach out. But yeah, really appreciate everyone joining the meeting tonight.
Okay, well, let me know when Plan B starts, and I'll help you with that one.
Appreciate the help.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you
Good night.
all. Good night.